that moves. ENCA.com.
Hello and welcome to Judge for Yourself, another episode thereof. Today we're discussing the highly controversial Red October campaign. It was started by a group of white South Africans who feel that they've been threatened and targeted by black South Africans. Some are even claiming there's a white genocide going on in the country as a whole. The campaign has naturally received a lot of criticism, many saying it's nothing but a white supremacist movement, others in fact saying it articulates legitimate anxieties. To discuss this topic, we're joined by the organiser of the Red campaign, Sunnette Bridges, and Angelo Fick, a senior lecturer at Wits University specialising in critical thinking, race and identity. Let's begin with a clip from Steve Hofmeyer, who also been intimately involved in this particular campaign.
We are not used to this mortality rate. We are not used to being raped at this rate. And most importantly, we are not used to being raped by other cultures, tribes, ethnicities.
Before I continue, I also want to say that apart from the two guests I have, we had invited Angelo Fick, couldn't come, he got us a substitute, she hasn't pitched up either. And I just wanted to say we were trying to get a broader sample of guests. We haven't done that, but we'll do our best to in fact interrogate this topic. So let me start with you. I don't really understand this. What are you suggesting, that white people are under threat?
We're not suggesting it. I mean, we actually know that we are. We know that white people are under threat.
Why do you feel under threat?
Well, I feel under threat just for the mere fact that I have 5 children of who are starting to finish school this year, and I know each and every one of my kids will most probably have to leave the country to get a job. Because of affirmative action, broad-based black economic empowerment, because of the fact that we are not really welcomed in the job sector. These things we know. I myself, I've been in 2 attempted hijackings, had 4 smash and grab incidents. I'm scared. I'm scared to let my 18-year-old girl go out by herself at night.
Black South Africans are not scared either by the crime?
I'm pretty sure they are.
So
but they
then
are not
why are we talking about this in race terms?
Well, black South Africans are not being targeted by white people, and it is an issue. It is an issue.
But why are you, what I'm intrigued by is why do you put this in race terms?
If you look at...
I mean, let's get something out of the way before I probe further. There's no question, I've done many of these programs and I'm not going to fool anybody, and I wouldn't be fooling myself or any viewer here to suggest that we don't have an appalling crime rate. And we'll talk about that a little later. But that crime rate is, to a large degree, focused in black and poor areas. That's where the majority of crime is.
That may be true. And if you look at the demographic, 80% of the people getting murdered are black people getting murdered by black people. And if you look at the age group...
Have you checked whether they're black or white people? Why are you so meticulously checking?
Because white people are being killed by black people. That is a problem.
And when white people get attacked by white people, and you get quite a bit of that.
No, you don't actually
Well,
get
we've
quite
got
a
a
bit
lot
of
of inter-family violence, and that includes whites and whites and blacks, I suspect.
It's not even 1% of the amount of white people that are getting murdered currently. And the biggest problem we are facing is that most of these people that are getting murdered at the rate 4 times higher than anybody else in this country are white farmers.
Are you convinced about your statistics? Because I'm going to show you some a little later.
Yes, I am convinced about
And
my
where do you get these statistics from? That
from the Transvaal Agricultural Union, from the South African Institute of Race Relations, from the South African Police,
we'll have a look
from
at
the Medical Research Council.
We'll look at a racial analysis of murders later. But let me just ask you this. I mean, don't you think that this kind of campaign is only going to exacerbate race tensions rather than, in a sense, achieving some reconciliation?
No, I don't think so whatsoever. I think I don't understand why white people being murdered by black people at the rate that is currently happening is not causing tension. But speaking out about it is causing tension makes no sense to me whatsoever. The demographic of the white South Africans that are being killed are 65 years of age on average.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. The statistics are one thing, the debate is another. Let me ask you, when I first read about this, I confess I thought, what's going on here? And yet this is probing an obvious anxiety.
Yes, and I think anxiety is a key word there, because I think it has to do with perceptions, and one does not want to downplay people's perceptions. But I do think one must separate what one perceives to be happening from what is actually happening. You know, for example, in South Africa, generally middle-class people feel that they are more likely to be victims of crime because they're middle class and property crime, when actually the statistics tell us that the poorer you are, the more likely you are to be victimised.
Yes, I want to show statistics in a moment, and I'll ask Sunnette also to respond to that. But
so my sense is that we need to separate perceptions and the way in which people perceive their lives and their life chances in South Africa from the realities of what may actually be going on out there.
Well, let me ask you this. You're at a university.
Right.
Let's just probe one issue before we take a break. This issue which comes up often, that affirmative action, black economic empowerment, etc., shuts off job opportunities for whites.
Look, again, I think that there is a commonsensical perception that circulates at dinner parties and in people's social lives that their life chances are reduced in South Africa because of the colour of their skin, in this case because they're white. I'm not certain that any of the governing bodies for any of their professions have indicated that this is the case. We know this from the Law Society, we know this from the medical profession, that actually it's sometimes quite the opposite.
And that's what's worrying me, is that unfortunately, I mean, if we had this debate in a broader context, I'm quite sure that if someone like Angelo was here, he would say exactly the opposite. He'd say, well, the economy is run by whites, the professions are run by whites, what are they complaining about? Aren't we dealing here with two unbelievably diametrically opposite perceptions? And how do we unpack that?
Well, partly I think we need to start asking the far more fundamental question, which is what was gained in post-apartheid South Africa and what was given up and who by?
Okay, it's a very good question. I've got to take a break and we'll come back to that.
News that moves. ENCA.com.